Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let's start with lecture number 21 for web technologies and programming. Before we proceed in the today's lecture, that is about jQuery, data description and transformation, XML and DOM. Let's overview about the content of previous lecture. This is the summary of previous lecture. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about the history object. The history object will maintain the history of the web browser URLs, and using the length attribute with the history object, the length of user browser URLs can also be calculated. The next is the navigator object. The navigator object is used to forward and backward between the URLs for a web page. And then there is a user browser method. Using this method, you can get the information about user browser. Moving onward, we have discussed about the browser engine. Using the browser engine method, we can come to know about the user browser engine, and similarly the user browser platform. If you want to know which particular operating system the user is using, for example, the user is using Windows 7 or Windows 8 or Linux, so using this method you can get the information about user platform. And then the browser language. With the help of browser language, you can come to know about the user browser language. So these are the four major methods using which you can get the information about user browsers: browser engine, browser platform and browser language respectively. Then there is a very important method, that is the screen object. The screen object method is used to know about the screen of the user device. It has different submethods. The one is the avail height method. If you are going to use avail height method, it will give you the information about user browser without knowing about the height of the taskbar on the user screen. So excluding the width of taskbar, you can get the information of user screen height. But if you are using only height method, you will come to know the height of user screen including the height of taskbar. The next is the user width method. For that user screen width method, there is the one that is avail width. The avail width method is basically used to exclude the width of taskbar from the user screen, and then giving the remaining width information to the user with the help of avail width method. In case you are using the width method, it will give you the information about user screen width including the width of the taskbar, mean it is going to give the complete width of the user screen. Then we have discussed about the form object. First of all, we have learned about how to create a new form and different elements for the form as well. There are different form elements. Using the method get element by ID, we can know the information about the particular web form element. And then we've discussed how to access the form element, and similarly how to set the form element. There are different attributes for accessing the form element and setting the form element accordingly. And then moving onward, we have discussed about data validation and validating form data. For form data validation, we have discussed it is done on client side, and it is done with respect to two different approaches. The first approach is that using the required attribute for validating form data, you can set the form validation for data. So the other way is to checking the pattern of particular fields. How to check that? You can use different pattern attributes. For example, for email there is a specific pattern. You can check that with respect to pattern, that is using a regular expression inside in order to validate the data. Then we have discussed about the validating form data, where we have discussed about regular expression for validation. We have seen the different ways of writing the regular expression rules. For example, we have seen the rule of writing the range of alphabet, for example A to Z, in middle bracket, and similarly we can then mention its minimum occurrence and its maximum occurrence, where minimum occurrence is represented by n. So if we are going to write the expression as A to Z, and then the expression is following by the minimum restriction, that is n, so that particular A to Z alphabet will appear at least once for that. And onward we have seen for the maximum as well. If we have seen A to Z and then we have read minimum 1 and maximum 10, so it means that the alphabets from A to Z can occur at least once or maximum 10s. So in this way, this is the second way of matching the data, form data, for validation. Now when the data from the client side is checked, it is sent to the server with page fragmenter, and the server will then match it with respect to the database values and then process it according to the required task. So that is performed the data validation on the server side. So this is all about we have discussed in the previous lecture. What we are going to discuss in today's lecture? In today's lecture, we are going to give an introduction to jQuery. First of all, we will see what is jQuery. Then we will see the DOM and jQuery. What is DOM? What is jQuery? What is the relation of DOM with jQuery? Moving onward, we will discuss about the jQuery selector and events. And then we will discuss about DOM objects. And then we will discuss about XML. XML is then again an extendable markup language. We will overview that. And then we will see different components of XML in the later section of today's lecture. So let's start with an introduction to jQuery. jQuery is basically a lightweight JavaScript library, and the basic purpose of this library is to create an easy and convenient interaction between JavaScript and HTML. So it is a JavaScript library which helps in convenient interaction. And jQuery was developed by John Resig at Rochester Institute of Technology. And we have also discussed that jQuery is free. It is open source software duly licensed under the MIT license and the GNU General Public License. And jQuery is basically all about simplicity. Why the web developer should be used to write long code, complex code, book length pieces of code when they want to create simple pieces of interaction. So it means if the web developer are going to use jQuery, they need to write the simple code, the short code, the easy code that is manageable conveniently, and modification is easy to do in that particular code. So jQuery is basically adding the simplicity factors for JavaScript and HTML interaction. There are different reasons why we need to use jQuery. The one of them is rich internet applications. So if you want to create more user interactive applications, providing different good animation and visual effects and better convenience to the user, you have to use rich internet application. With the help of jQuery, you have to use jQuery. Then there is dynamic HTML. If you want to give a dynamic look and feel to your website, where you want to create the content that is changing continuously, so you can use jQuery in a best possible way for this. Another is unobtrusive JavaScript. It means the separation of behavior from structure. So if you want to separate the concerns of behavior, then jQuery is the right choice. And jQuery is also helping you in adding JavaScript to your web pages in an easy manner. And jQuery is very easy to use, and jQuery eliminates the problems of cross browsers. When you are going to develop a website, a web-based application, due to different browser versions, you can face the problems. And these problems, these issues can be removed, can be minimized and eliminated by using jQuery. And jQuery is the first mobile web development library and provides a very good way of interaction for mobile devices as well. So these are the key reasons why we are going to use jQuery. jQuery also simplifies the complication of different concepts, different things from JavaScript. For example, AJAX call and DOM manipulation, these are complex things, and jQuery simplifies the complex processes. What does the jQuery library contain? The jQuery library contains different features, such as the one is HTML and DOM manipulation. The second one is CSS manipulation. The third one is HTML event methods. The fourth is effects and animation for website. And then the Ajax, and Ajax is basically asynchronous JavaScript and XML. And what is the concern for jQuery with respect to DOM? DOM basically is an abbreviation of Document Object Model, and DOM is basically a cross-platform and language independent convention for representing and interacting with objects in HTML, XHTML and XML documents. And moving onwards, we will discuss about aspect for the DOMs. So before, always remember that DOM is a cross-platform supported, and it is language independent, means you can use it with the multiple languages and multiple technologies. Why to use the DOM? To provide interaction for different objects of HTML, XHTML and XML documents. And we have seen there are different types of DOM: XHTML DOM, XML DOM and HTML DOM. And we have discussed in detail HTML DOM in our previous lectures. So the key aspect of the DOM is DOM elements, and the elements may be addressed and manipulating by using different programming language syntax that is already supported in web pages. So here is the structure for jQuery and DOM. So if you do consider over here on the top, the document is mentioned over here, and then the root elements are described. Different root elements are mentioned over here, you can see, and it is basically the major element, that is the HTML root element. And then the HTML web page is divided with HTML head and HTML body. For HTML head, you can see the head tag is started, and then the title tag is mentioned, that is basically the element inside the head, the title tag. And moving onward, you can see that the title contains the text, that is my title. So in this way, this is the header section. So if you do consider on the right side, then HTML body tag is mentioned. Here you can see the body tag, and the body tag contains different elements. For example, the one is heading tag, and here it is the H1 heading which is mentioned, and the H1 heading will contain the text my header, and here another HTML element for the HTML body tag is mentioned, that is basically a reference for hyperlink, and this HTML element has an attribute of href for the hyperlinking, so that is separately mentioned because it is the part of this element. And then the name of the text that will appear over here is like my link, so it will appear over here, my link. So this is basically the division of DOM and jQuery for HTML pages. Now moving onward, you can see that jQuery is basically DOM scripting. What does it mean? It means that hierarchical structure of web pages is defined, as we have seen in the previous hierarchy tree, and you can add different elements, and you can subtract different elements for DOM elements on runtime, on the fly, during the working of web pages. You can also change different properties and contents of DOM elements during runtime. So the properties can be set, the properties can be get with the help of these DOM elements as well. And jQuery helps in uses the DOM elements to be manipulated for a particular web page. So what is the syntax for writing the jQuery? The jQuery syntax is tailored. By tailored I mean customized. By tailored I mean is meant accordingly. So the jQuery syntax is customized, made for selecting HTML elements, number one, and performing the actions on those elements. So the first we need to select that element, and the second is to perform the action on the element accordingly. So the basic syntax of writing is selector, $, then selector, and then the action. So this is the basic syntax for writing jQuery. So what does a $sign is? $sign is basically used to define or to access the jQuery. So whenever a $sign is mentioned, it means jQuery is used, jQuery is accessed, jQuery is defined. Then selector. The selector is basically used to query, to find for that particular HTML elements. And in the end, the jQuery action is mentioned, the action that is to be performed on that particular HTML element. So these are the three parts that are the sections of for the syntax in jQuery. The $sign, that is to define or to access particular jQuery, and then the jQuery selector, which is used to find the HTML element, and then the jQuery action that is used to define the relevant action on that particular found selector. Let's see the examples of jQuery. Here you can see the $sign is mentioned in the start, which is giving to define the particular jQuery. Then this is mentioned. This is basically used as an HTML element. And then this is hide, means the hide particular action is used for hiding this particular element. So it will hide the current element. The next one is the $sign, and the $sign is again accessing the jQuery, and then the HTML tag P is used, and then again this P is called for the action hide, and this is basically hiding the particular paragraph element. Again, the next one is $sign, which is defining the jQuery. Then .test is mentioned, and it is basically a class IT that is referred. Again, it is hided, so it will hide all the elements with the class name .test. And similarly, in the end, $sign, and then .#test is mentioned, and then the action is .hide. So all the elements with ID test will be selected, and then will be hide by hide method. So the jQuery selector method allows you to select and manipulate the relevant HTML elements. So selector are used to select the HTML elements, and selector can be used by the IDs of HTML elements, by classes of HTML elements, by the type attributes of the HTML elements, and the values of elements. And similarly, we have different options to find the HTML elements with different properties. So the key types of selectors are element selector, the ID selector, and the class selector, which we have seen previously. In the element selector, we are going to clearly give the name of the element. The ID selector will contain the ID of that particular HTML element, and the class selector will contain the name of the class for which you want to get or set the attributes accordingly. So whatever is the category of jQuery selector, all the selectors started with jQuery start, and this is the jQuery start represented by $sign with parentheses. So whenever the $sign parenthesis is mentioned, it means the jQuery is going to be started. Then the jQuery element selector. The element selector selects the particular HTML element based on the element name or element ID and class name similarly. Let's see how. If you see, the $sign is mentioned over here, and then after the $sign, the P, that is an HTML element, is mentioned over here, the P. So this is basically used to define the jQuery, and this is basically used to find the paragraph element. So using all the paragraph tags from the web page will be selected. You just need to mention the paragraph once. The jQuery ID selector. The jQuery ID selector basically uses the ID attribute of an HTML tag to find the particular element. So we have come to know that if #ID is used, then we can access an element with the ID. And always remember, the ID should be unique for a page, so that you can use the particular ID selector when you want to find the particular unique element. So in order to find a specific element on a web page, it should have a unique ID that is represented with #ID. Let's see the example. Again, the $sign is mentioned over here. So this $sign is basically used to define the jQuery, and then the particular ID that is mentioned, #test, is mentioned. So using this tag with ID of text, it means it means that the element which has the test as an ID will be selected for that particular web page. Now another method for using the jQuery with class selector. The jQuery class selector basically finds elements with a specific class. So if you want to identify a class specifically, you will use jQuery with class. How to write it? See the example. The $sign used to mention the particular jQuery, and then .test. Here this .test is basically used to identify the class. So the class will be identified. Using this, all the tags which consist of text for that particular web page will be displayed accordingly. See what different sort of class selectors are mentioned. The $ and then static is mentioned. It means select all the elements. Then this is mentioned, which means select the specific current HTML element. And then paragraph is mentioned, where it is written p.intro. It means select the paragraph element with the class intro. And then p:first is mentioned, means select the first p element. And then ul unordered list is mentioned with li: first, means select the first list index element of the first unordered list. Then unordered list is mentioned with list index first dash child. It means select the first list index element of every unordered list. And then the href is mentioned, which means all the attribute with the href attribute will be selected. And then a $, a target equals to _blank is mentioned. It means select all the elements with the target attribute value equals to _blank. And similarly, not equals to with blank, select all the A elements with target attributes that do not have equals to _blank. And then tr even is mentioned. Tr basically is used for table row creation, and select all the even values elements for it. And then tr odd is mentioned, which means select all the tr odd elements. So these are the major method for jQuery class selectors. Now we are going to discuss the jQuery events. All the different visitors take action on a web page, and the web page responds to the user accordingly. These are said to be called as event. So an event is going to represent the precise movement when something happens, a very short information when something happens. So what are the common events that we can have? Number one is the mouse events. The common mouse events are clicking, then double clicking a mouse, and then mouse enter and mouse leave. When you are moving your mouse to particular object, the mouse is mouse enter, and when you are removing it, it means mouse leave. And then keyboard events. For that, key press is mentioned, like you press the enter key, then key down and key up is mentioned. Then there are form events, like the submit is a form event. On submitting, you want to perform particular action, then changing of a particular form, then the form is focused or the form is blurred. And moving onward, we have different document and window events as well. For that, it is a load function, and then there is a resize function, then the scroll function and unload function. So either the web page is loaded or unloaded, or it is resized or it is scrolled. You can trigger a particular action for these events. Now how to write the jQuery event syntax. What is the format of writing jQuery event syntax? To assign a click event, for example, to all the paragraphs on a web page, you can write in this way. The $ is mentioned, then the particular paragraph element is mentioned, that is a selector, you can say, and then the action, the event that will be executed is click event. So now we need to define the next step, that what should happen when an event is fired. Whenever an event is fired, you must pass a particular function to the event. See, for example, the $, the paragraph P, and then click action is mentioned and the function is called for that particular click, and then the action detail is written. So what are the commonly used events? The most commonly used event is document.ready. So the method allows to execute a function when document is fully loaded. So .ready is basically used that load it in order the user can read it. The next one is the click. The function is executed when the user clicks on particular HTML elements. Then there is double click. The function is executed when the user double clicks on HTML element. And then the hover method is mentioned. The hover method takes two functions and is combination of basically mouse enter and mouse leave method. So when you are moving your mouse to particular object and after a delay you are leaving it, so this complete is said to be mouse hover function. The first function that is executed when the mouse enters the HTML element is mouse enter, and the second function is executed when the mouse leaves the HTML element. And the last one is blur. When form field loses the focus and gets blurred, then that is said to be blur, and on which a function is executed. So these are the common events for which a function can be executed. Now there is an on method. The on method basically attaches one or more event handlers for the selected elements. So multiple event handlers are joined with selected elements. Let's see. The $ is mentioned, jQuery is defined, then the particular paragraph ID is given, the selector is given, and then on click the action is given, and then mouse enter function is written, for which the JavaScript is defined, and with this class the CSS, when this particular element CSS background attribute is mentioned as light gray, this function will be executed. Then the mouse leave function, $ this .css background color is mentioned as light blue. So on mouse leave function the background color will be light blue, and then another click function where this .css background color is yellow. So here the particular function is closed. So here the information of background color lightly and background color for the light blue and background color for the yellow will be executed for their particular triggers. And we can apply some commonly used effects on HTML elements by just simply calling a jQuery function. So now we are going to discuss different jQuery effects. The common effects are hide and show effect. So the $sign with paragraph, the ID, and then the hide action is mentioned. It is basically going in effect, the elements are going to be hidden. And then similarly show is mentioned, it will show the element. Similarly fade in, fade out, shadow down, and slide up and slide down is mentioned. So now moving onward, the DOM. DOM is basically a document object model, and a web page is made dynamic by applying particular JavaScript processing for the XHTML elements on that particular page. XHTML tags are software objects having no particular properties and methods that can be programmed. So the XHTML objects are programmed through JavaScript processing routines to make web pages dynamic. And DOM is basically providing the programming effects to the XHTML objects that are appearing on a web page. All the XHTML elements along with their containing text and attributes can be accessed through the DOM. And the XHTML DOM is a platform, and again which is language independent. So by any language like Java, JavaScript, VBScript, it can be used. So DOM basically stands for document object model, which is cross-platform, language independent, and a convention for representing and interacting with different objects in HTML, XHTML, and XML. And we have different aspects for the DOM, and the aspects are the DOM elements, which may be addressed and manipulated within the syntax of the programming language that is in use. So now see the DOM object hierarchy. The first one is basically window, which is mentioned below the document, the history, and the location of that particular window. So here the history and location is basically the navigators. And then the document information, anchor, applet, area, form, image, or link is mentioned. And then for form, the submit button is given, the checkbox is given, the file upload is given, the file header is given, the password is mentioned, the radio button can be presented, the reset button can be mentioned, the select form element can be given, and similarly the text can be given, the submit button can be given, the text area can be given. So these are all the form elements, and form element is basically part of the document, and document is the part of the window. So this all is showing the DOM hierarchy. How DOM is going to address the different HTML elements in which particular hierarchy. Then we have different types of DOM objects. The first one is window, second one is navigator, the third one is location, the fourth one is history, and the fifth one is document. Now let's see the DOM objects one by one. The window object. The window object is the master DOM object that is represented as the top of the DOM hierarchy. What are the properties for window DOM object? Length. It will show you the number of frames in particular window. The second one is basically frame. Frame is basically an array of Windows object and one for each frame. And then the parent, and some frames are the Windows object, and sometimes parent window is also required. Let's see the example of it. So the first one is window.document, and window.document is basically if frameless accesses the top level document, and if frame accesses the top level document, we use window.document. The second one is windows.frame index given one.document. So it will access the document that is contained as the first name, and then frame one dot parent dot document, it will access the document contained in the parent frame. The second one for the DOM object is the navigator object. Navigator object basically contains information about the web browser, and navigator object can be used with windows.navigator or just the word navigator. So the attributes for the navigator object are app name. So app name is going to mention the name of the browser that is used. Then app version, which is going to tell about the application version that a user has. And the third one is basically platform, which tells about the operating system that is in use. And the fourth one is cookie enabled, that tells us that the browser is enabled for cookies or not. So these are the basic four methods that are used for navigator object: app name, app version, platform, and cookie element. Then the location object. The location object contains information about the current URL of the user browser, and it can be accessed with windows.location or just with the location word. The useful properties for location are: number one is href, which retrieves by entering the URL. The second one is basically the host, and host is going to retrieve the particular domain name. And the third one is basically the path name, that is going to retrieve the path that is inside the domain, where page name is not the end of particular domain. So the fourth one is hash, and hash retrieves the anchor. So these are the four methods: href, host, path name, and height, which are used as the properties for location object. Then we have discussed about history object. History object contains the information of the URL that the browser has visited in the session for a particular window. So history contains the information of URLs. History object can be accessed with the help of as window.history or just history. And the popular properties for the history objects are next and previous, where next tells you about the next URL of the browser, but it will not direct you over there. What are the useful methods for history object? The back method. The back method is acting the same way as pressing the back button. And then the forward method. The second method is forward method, and it is representing the same as pressing the forward arrow key button. The third one is basically go. Go is basically used to go or forward for a given number of pages, when to go back for 3 pages. And then we have the go method. The go is basically used with back or forward for a given number of pages, either to go back for 3 pages or either to move forward for 3 pages, and similarly as per requirement. And it can also be used at history.go, and where bracket is mentioned and particular ID is mentioned, it means go for the history page number 3 on that particular web page. So this is basically the typically most accessed object, and you can access all the items in the document window with the use of document.object, and it focuses on forms, tables, paragraph, list, images. You can access all these elements and the similar elements in the document object window. You can also contact and consult a reference for properties and methods. Then frameless document. Access a window.document or document, and then writing the document in a frame. How? Window.frame, and then mention X, the attribute, and then the JavaScript code will be executed, and here the DOM is written as windows.framex.document, where X is basically the number or name of that particular frame. Now we are going to see about XML. The first one is SGML. SGML stands for Standard Generalized Markup Language. It is an ISO standard, and in 1986 it is used for data storage and exchange. The meta language for defining language, which is a defining language, is used through DTD. And the third one is basically a famous SGML language is HTML, and the separation of content and display is controlled with it, and using in USA government and contractors, large government companies, manufacturers and distributors, and technical jobs as well. And SGML reference is basically 100 pages long. And what is XML? Basically XML is a W3C recommendation in 1998. It's a simple subset which follows the rule of 80-20 of SGML, and it maintains the ASCII on the web. and XML specification is mentioned in 26 pages detail. So the XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. So XML is basically a meta language for descriptive markup, and you can invent your own tags for it. And XML uses document type definition or an XML schema to describe the data. XML with DTD or XML schema is designed by yourself and is designed to be a self-descriptor, and it has the built-in internationalization via Unicode, and it's also support the built-in error handling. So a forgotten tag, an attribute without particular codes, renders then HTML document unusable. So it needs a lot of tool support from the big IT companies. Why we need to use XML? Many of shareable data reside in computer system and in incompatible database system, which arises in the conflicts of hardware and software. So the most of time consuming challenges for developers has been used to exchange the data between such systems over the internet. And similarly, converting the data to XML can greatly reduce the complexity and create data that can be earned by many different applications. For example, XML data is stored in one plain text format and behavior and familiar as well. And then we see that XML data is in plain text format and independent of hardware and software. And XML data can also be used to create new languages, and XML allow us to define our own markup language as well. Always remember, XML is not a replacement for HTML. In future, the web development will be likely to be described data with help of HTML and XML. Then XML and HTML are designed for two different goals. HTML was designed to display data and to focus on how data is look like HTML describes both structure, paragraph, heading, appearance, while the XML was designed to describe data and to focus the data, for example, describing only content. So XML is basically for computers, with HTML is for computers, with HTML for humans. And XML is used as a markup data, so it can be processed by computers, while HTML is markup text, so it can be displayed to the user. The OpenW3 standard has no proprietary for XML, and it allows to represent the cross-platform heterogeneous environments. It's basically cross-platform, and it basically allows for high degree of interoperability. For example, the ability to exchange data between incompatible applications and incompatible platform is set to achieve interoperability, and the strict rules that make it easy to write XML parser is the syntax, the structure, and the case sensitiveness. And XML makes data more useful as the hardware, the software and application independence of XML makes data available to the user, not only HTML elements. What are the benefits for XML? You don't need to invent your own tags, and the tags are used to mark up documents and the structure of the HTML as per the standardization of ISO. And then the author of HTML documents can only use tags that are defined in HTML standard. So these are the benefits for XML. So XML allows the author to define his own tag, his customized tag, and can be used with his own document structure. Now, what are the components of XML? The first one is XML declaration. For that, there is processing information, and a Unicode is by default given as processing instruction, but the namespace declaration and the schema declaration can also be used for particular surgery. And then elements. Each element has a beginning and an ending tag. The starting tag and ending tag with the same tag name, but for ending tag the forward slash is mentioned. So element can be simply written in the tag name. And attributes describe an element, for example data type, data range, and can appear on the beginning of tag. See the components. Processing instruction is written on the top, and then the element section is mentioned, and then the elements with attributes are mentioned. How an XML page is declared? It looks like XML version equals to 1.1, and then Unicode scheme and the standard of UTF. So the XML declaration is not required basically by browser, but it is used by XML processor, so you need to include it. Always remember, if present, the XML will be executed first, and not with white space should precede it. Note the bracket, starting bracket and ending bracket. Note the version attribute is required. Encoding is UTF-8 ASCII or 16 Unicode. On something else can be omitted. An XML document is always a standalone, and it makes no use of DTD external markup declaration, and default value for any attribute is no. An HTML element is a complete thing from the start element tag and till the end element tag, and HTML elements are extensible, and they have relationships among each other. So XML elements are extensible and they have relationships, and they are related as child and parents. The simple rules, naming rules for XML elements, that always the name can contain letters, number and other character, and the name can never be started with the number or punctuation character, and the name will not start with the letters of XML, and the name cannot contain any spaces. And now we are going to see the XML attributes. There are different XML elements which can have different attributes. So data can be stored in child elements or in attributes. So while using the attribute, you should avoid the following things. Attributes can contain the multiple values. Attributes are not necessarily easily expandable, and attribute basically not necessarily can describe about structure, and it is difficult to manipulate with program code. And HTML and XML attribute values are not easy to test against DTD, which is used to define for legal elements of XML document. The experience shows that the attributes are handy in HTML, but child elements should be used in their place in XML. And always use to attribute to provide relevant information, not to provide unnecessary data. So there is a difference between a well-formatted HTML XML document and a valid XML document. A well-formatted XML document is the one with correct XML syntax, while the XML syntax is constrained and controlled by grammar of, and this will call the permitted tag name, attachment of attribute of tag, and similarly. While the well-formatted XML document means that it conforms to the given DTD or schema that is to be validated. And every valid XML document is always well formatted, but the reverse is not necessarily be possible. So this is the sample XML document, which is XML version is mentioned, the bookstore tag is given, and then all the information is written over here. You can see it that book genre is mentioned, then ISBN is mentioned, the title tag is mentioned, the author is given, the price is given, the book tag is closed, the book satellite tag is started, and the author is closed, and then first name, and then last name, and then author and price is given, and the book tag is closed and bookstore is closed. So always remember, for XML there are some rules, and that is there should be one and only one root element. For every starting tag there must be a closing tag, and then sub elements must be properly nested. Attributes are optional as defined by the schema, and attributes value must be enclosed in double quotes or single quotes, and processing instruction are also optional, and the XML is basically a case sensitive language. So the browser Netscape 6 supports XML, Internet Explorer 5 supports XML 1.0, and 5.0 also has greater than following XML, that is 5. And here we can see the view of XML document and displaying of XML with CSS, and the transforming of XML and XLSL, and then XML can be embedded in HTML data elements islands as HTML, and then binding of HTML data to HTML elements and accessing to the HTML DOM, and finally full support for W3C DTD standards. So in today's lecture we have discussed about jQuery. That jQuery is basically a lightweight JavaScript library. Then DOM and the DOM and jQuery. Then we have seen the jQuery selectors, different selectors of jQuery, and where we have seen about the syntax, the selectors, the element selector, the class selector, different events and effects. And then we have discussed about the DOM and HTML DOM and HTML DOM objects, the window object, navigator object, location, history and document. And in the end we have discussed in detail about XML and different components of XML. This is all about for today's lecture. Thank you for today's lecture.